Hello again. It's cold, about 10 degrees, but it's sunny. And it's funny, in Portugal, it's like that here. It could be 26, 27, 28 degrees, and in the sun it feels like it's 40. And in the shade it feels cool. It's the same thing when it's cold. Right now it's nippy because of the wind chill factor on my bicycle, but if I'm just standing in the sun, it's quite warm, comfortable. So I'm happy. It was fun watching the eclipse on television. I noticed there were lots of people from Mazatlan to Maine watching it all over the states, even if not in the direct path of the eclipse. So I'm just guessing that it happened. It actually really happened. And that a lot of people saw it and enjoyed it. And I'm glad. I'm happy for them. And it's another cause for celebration in the United States, which is good. People need that in the States. They have to feel like everything's great, so it's a wonderful thing. And Stephen Colbert made a really funny joke. He showed a clip from Fox News where the Fox News caster was saying that immigrants were spotted in dark clothing using the solar eclipse as covered across the border into the United States. And he goes, well, another chance to do that'll happen at nighttime. That was funny. Yeah, it's not like they can't sneak into the United States under the cover of darkness every single night. But, that's Fox News. What are you going to do? It's entertainment. Another funny thing I noticed recently, I don't know why I'm getting this ad on my YouTube, but it's talking about the multiverse and how you can skip into your different lives in different universes. And the spiel is hilarious, and it reminds me of reincarnation. So you go to your seer or your astrologer or your pseudo-Hindu guru or somebody, and they, oh, Jesus Christ, that's fucking, it smells like mosquito spray. Ooh, that was not nice. So they, they tell you about your past lives, and you imagine when you were a king or a princess or a warrior or a doctor or a hero or something. You tap into that fantasy world. And I always joke that, well, I remember about 17 trillion of my former lives as an amoeba and as a gut bacteria in a cow. Stuff like that. We never remember those lifetimes. Well, we can say that, like, I was a mole in a former life. Now, you have to be a human being, but you weren't a poor human being. You weren't a homeless human being. You weren't a serial killer or something like that. You're always something wonderful. Why would you remember a bad life anyway? But you might acknowledge that if you had all these lifetimes, former lives, that some of them weren't that great. Maybe you starved to death, or you didn't make it to 3 years old, dozens of your lives, which would make sense statistically. If you're talking about infant mortality rates across time. So the multiverse one is hilarious. So you're going to jump to this multiverse, you get blown up by an artillery shell. You jump into the other one and you're dying of cancer. You jump into the other one and, all this terrible shit happens to you. But no, it's like, let's go back and meet the billionaire you. And I'm going to meet the F1 driver me. And I'm going to meet the scientist me and the, all these heroic elements. The billionaire me. And I'm going to learn from these different universes. Because why would you pop into a universe where you're getting tortured by a, right-wing or revolutionary extremist, or driven off your land by settlers, colonialists, or whatever? You're not going to go back. You're not going to jump into that universe. You're going to jump into the universe where you're a pole vaulter, a champion pole vaulter, or a deep sea diver, or an astronaut. Or maybe you're going to jump into the universe where you know how to weave baskets and learn from your other self. Well, in the panoply of various tools, intellectual tools that our species can avail itself of, it seems to me like we just don't have the greatest desire to go the critical thinking route. Magical thinking is much more fun. So we go the magical thinking route. People argue about all these things. Well, the West is always dying, right? I've talked about that before. Western civilization is always a threat. You need threats to get people to do things. So the last week I read a lot of really interesting stuff. As well as finishing up the book, The Earth Transformed, which is a deep dive into how things have shifted from the beginning of time through the beginning of civilization up till today and beyond. With a slight emphasis on how climate affects things, globally. It's an interesting take. It's not like a green book or an ideological book. It's just like, if we also take the climate into account, how did that affect various places and human communities across time? Yeah, I read this, Curtis Yarvin Moldbug thing, and another Dark Futura piece on propaganda, publicity, PR, which was very good. Lots of interesting tidbits in there, but from a slightly coded, dog-whistled, right-wing perspective. The thesis, the basic conclusion of which is that if the right wants to beat the left, because the right is always losing to the left is always losing to the right, and the lefties think that they're always moving right, and the righties think they're always being forced to move left, and it's all just such a waste of time, in my opinion, intellectually. But of course we're tribalist, and my side biased, and we want to fit in and status hungry, so we're gonna do the tribal thing and the that glob onto some ideological take and make it your own so that you can fit in and have an audience and so on. Anyway, he was talking about the Super Bowl. That was very interesting. And Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, the controversy around Bud Light. And, he made a lot of good points, and I know this from experience in my years of work, how that whole business ecosystem works. And it is true that it's all based on money. I mean, it's a huge industry. Publicists and managers and trainers and PR people and advertising people and propagandists that are, beyond the think tankers and the pundits, and that all these people are getting paid. They're part of a business ecosystem that's extremely profit-driven and very lucrative. So that was interesting. And then I was watching Nate Hagen's couple of podcasts of his with a couple of older people that have a completely different way of looking at things. And then I was checking Obrigado. Bom dia. So, what else? Oh, the metabolism thing. It's like a human metabolism is about 100 watt light bulb for a normal active day. And we use 13,000 watts, people in wealthy countries, because of our somatic exosomatic metabolism, which requires energy to use all of our stuff, to maintain and use all of our daily stuff. So we're basically using a metabolism of 13 elephants, or almost a blue whale. And it's energy, right? You can measure energy in different ways. Watts in this case, thinking about that, but calories and other kinds of units. But we use a lot of it. We are getting to the point where we are beyond peak oil, and there's going to be a crash in supply at some point. I don't know when, but it'll happen. And before then, there's going to be a lot more constraints on shipping and so on. And then I was looking at some papers in the climate space, and they're talking about this uncontrolled accidental experiment that took place during the COVID period, where Europe and some other regions decided to regulate shipping emissions, which puts a lot of particulates into the air on these shipping routes, which acts as an albedo kind of thing, where it's reflecting the sun's energy back out into space, as opposed to the CO2 blanket, which holds the energy in on the Earth. So the particulates emitted from coal and shipping and so on provides a global masking effect, which diminishes the global warming. It's kind of like an umbrella, as opposed to a CO2 blanket. And that was regulated out, and also we had the downturn in shipping logistics during COVID, when all the lockdowns were happening, and we had this amazing spike in temperature that goes beyond El Nino and other effects that you can combine in there with your data sets and interpret as you will. But it's incontrovertible. It's not controversial. It's real. We've had this situation, and with the locked-in heating that's there, that will be generated regardless based on our epic record use of fossil fuels in recent years and over the past, couple hundred years of really rapid industrialization. We've got a big problem coming down the pike, and nobody's paying attention to it. Nobody wants to know about it, and governments aren't doing near enough. But that all fits into this metabolism thing. So cities, there's the scaling law. I forgot the name of the guy, but it's on that Nate Hagen's. I'll link it. But as an animal gets bigger, it uses 2/3 or something like that of the energy of the next smaller animal. Other people have written about this or referenced this, and I've posted it. But basically, it's kind of interesting because you get this added efficiency by being bigger. Then you want to talk about cities being bigger and how much more efficient are they and so on. And basically, not so much. It's different. The metabolism of the material world in an industrial sense is not the same, doesn't have the same efficiencies unless it's designed to deliberately. Anyway, listen to that one. And, from a biological point of view, it's interesting, and then you can combine that with other things, right? Climate and urban design and all kinds of stuff. So then Moldbug was talking about he doesn't care about Palestinians because he's an American and he doesn't have to worry about what's going on over there. It's the whole isolationist type thing. Of course he doesn't like to see people get hurt and all that. But, if they would just have, booted out all the people a long time ago and stuck them somewhere else, there wouldn't have been this problem. So obviously a kind of a right-wing Zionist perspective, forgetting about all of the communist and socialist cover that the historical rhetoric is, shows when you study the history of how Israel and Zionism going back to the 19th century until now. But that was an interesting thing to compare and contrast. You kind of put the dark Futura and the carousel dark Futura and Moldbug, gray mirror in one category, and then you can add some of these other perspectives. So another guy from the left was talking about how industrialization influences everything. So again, this should be obvious to everybody, but a lot of people just don't see it. But industrialization is a big deal, and has been for a long time. It drives colonialism and imperialism and so on. But industrialism, from the advent of like the beginning of the 19th century or something, it's on a totally different scale. And wars are driven by the desire to control resources required for industrialization and in industry and growth and so on. And you can also glom this onto histories of settler colonialism in the West and slavery and all that kind of stuff without getting all woke and, blah, blah, blah. It's just a fact of reality. But it's a big deal, and it drives these conflicts. You don't necessarily have to have Thucydides trap type of thing. China's competitive now. It's demonstrated that it has a different system of doing things, of being an industrial superpower. People may be paid less there, but they have higher net worth because of systemic and structural things. You know, the banking system is different and so on. I was reading another article about that was quite interesting. Anyway, this competition for resources is going to get more and more, and you have to understand the roots of the problems in Ukraine and Israel, the Greater Israel Project and so on. Or you don't have to, you can just ignore it, but we're all ignoring it. But these causal relationships, however complex they are and myriad their mechanisms and origins are tried and true. So we're going to have to deal with these problems as they continue to crash like waves across our world and impact all of us, whether we're aware of what's coming or not. So I want to just, in my next video, take you through some of these articles briefly, as quickly as I can, to try to illustrate that if you compare and contrast these different perspectives that are well researched, well referenced, well digested from a fairly expert perspective of their authors. And yes, we need expertise. We need rationalism. We need logic. We need, epistemology and ontology and metaphysics. And we need all of these things. It's not like an either or. The rationalists, oh my God, we should all just be, Baptists or something. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. We've had these tools. We've been numerate. We've had mathematics for a long time. You don't necessarily have to understand the statistics or the Bayesian reasoning or Bayesian statistics or risk theory in that context or in the game theoretic context. But you should know that they all exist and how they work, and be able to use these various ways of seeing and understanding how things work in your analysis and decision-making processes if you want to have some form of agency. There's a nice little goat just down there in the forest. Hey, goat. So you don't want to leave any of this on the table. It's your bullshit detector kit and so on. Learning how to analyze data by being numerate. Understanding quality of data and how quantities impact things. And on and on and on. Doesn't hurt. So all these stupid little petty, I'm in this club and we don't like rationalists thing is dumb. Which is why, however pithy and entertaining Curtis Yarvin can be when he's defending himself from a lefty or a different brand of ideologue, he doesn't really say that much. It's all coded within his little clique, the NRX thing. And people think, well, I'm really smart because I listen to this guy. It's like Sam Harris with his moral landscape. My moral landscape, I'm not saying that morality has to be utterly relativistic in a postmodern sense, but, if we're going to do the global consciousness thing in a revolutionary spirit or even a religious spirit or whatever, and kind of scientifically try to find what's at the base of human flourishing, I don't think it's that mysterious. Respect, good relationships, good community, sleep, health, you know, just having an opportunity to do something meaningful with your life, and good work where you can make a living, and housing, and this is human flourishing. We don't have to moralize that much about it, do we? Really? Seems kind of self-evident to me that these things are important and necessary. So, but you want to add into that discussion the fact that you believe that Islam is the mother of all bad ideas, and you got to get rid of that at the very least. If you're a so-called Richard Dawkins cultural Christian, because of you accidentally were born in this universe in the UK, then, well, it's okay. I mean, Jains are good. He always says that. Well, you cannot tell me, having traveled the way I have, having met so many different kinds of people, that there aren't good Muslims, good Christians, good atheists, good communists, good socialists, good reactionaries, good conservatives, and so on and so forth. Depends on how extreme, and also whatever kind of trauma or mentality you have that's more prone to violence, authoritarianism, and so on. But even thinking about it on those lines, like what's on a scale of 1 to 10, how fascistic am I? Or, a fascist is a fascist, period. It's a known quantity. It's like lead isotopes. I have to admit that when I read Curtis Yarvin and speculating about the king and the dream team, and the technocratic CEO who's dismantling all the institutions from the ground up, firing everybody and rebuilding the whole thing, I think that's ridiculous, because I don't just think it's that efficient or that great an idea to take ideas and completely deconstruct it and destroy them, take institutions and destroy them, when you could revamp them and reform them. Of course, some might not be reformable. Do you rip up the Constitution, or and rewrite it from whole cloth based on something totally unfamiliar? Or do you just fix it where it needs to be fixed? Anyway, if I start to imagine myself as the CEO, king of the great, new, wonderful dream team future, yes, I have my draconian moments, my authoritarian moments. This will be tolerated, this won't be tolerated. Full stop, God damn it, I'm in charge now. And then you do need your police state to enforce it. And you do have to tell people who beg to differ that, well, you can have your opinion, but you can't implement it. There are strict rules in some countries, Turkey, Hungary, Russia, China, wherever, and people don't seem to mind it that much. But, they're strict, and you just can't have it every which way but loose. So yeah, there would be some people that wouldn't be too happy. But could you keep things together enough that you wouldn't get knifed on the balcony or in the back alley on the way to give an address at the Senate because they don't like what you're doing in general? Or could you keep the people comfortable enough and satisfied enough in their world that they would be inclined to continue to support you? So the bloodbath, it's not the French Revolution, it's a neo-reactionary revolution. There's a huge difference, bro. Well, we've seen these things throughout history without being boring and talking about fascist Italy and Nazi Germany and whatever. Stalinist Russia, you know, the Russian Civil War, the Rohingyas, and all the various wonderful panoply of variety of genocides and oppression and all that shit. You know, I'm a pussy. The only reason I'm not riding through this is because I just don't want to wash these clothes. I don't want to get all muddy. So yeah, okay, I'm no fun. If I wanted to get totally messy, I'd ride right through that. Because this bike can take it. So, anyway, like I'm trying to allude to the fact that things are nuanced and complex and require multiple perspectives and real knowledge and understanding to sort out an accurate and useful point of view that you can apply to decision making, community building, being a good father, whatever. And just being pissed off at the other guy isn't going to cut it. The other thing is, I was watching a documentary, yes, by a communist type, but extremely well researched on Zionism. And you have to face the facts and the truth beyond whatever you think is ideal or better for human beings, that would provide better moral and ethical structures and educations and societies, with just the historical facts, you know, as they are, as you can understand them by looking at various lines of evidence. It's a really well done documentary, and it's a series, and it really fills in all the gaps in one's knowledge about the whole story of how Israel became a state and the various issues surrounding the Palestinian question and so on, whether or not, you know, it's like, I went to an empty land and I created some law, some stories, and I wrote them down and I coded it and I said, this is mine now because you savages aren't productive. I don't see any Nike shoes here. What are you doing with this land, you idiots? And some people talk about learning from indigenous communities. Where are they? Everything's been conquered and settled, and you know, it's like invasive species all over the place. And my friend drove from LA to Las Vegas, no bugs on the windshield or on the license plate. And yet there's plenty of bees in California now, bumblebees for some reason. It's all very complicated. It's a dance of life, and it's all interconnected in all kinds of ways. It's fascinating and interesting. And regardless of what you think about it or believe, you deal with it every day, which is reality. And we have these tools that we can use to understand reality. We should use all of them. And we should understand that various perspectives, even if they're anathema to us, or, you know, cringe or disgusting, you know, deserve a good, sincere look. Especially if they've been around a while and they have a lot of adherents around the world who put stock in them, and you've seen the thought and the tradition grow over time and develop and mature. It's harder to write it off, right? So Burkean, Straussian, or various forms of you know, communist ideology or whatever it is, you know, these things have been around a while, and in some cases they've developed and evolved, and there's still useful frameworks, you know. If you're looking at scientific theories, for example, they keep growing and evolving as we learn more. But very seldomly do you see a theory like evolution or gravity or something just become overthrown. Like if you want to talk about physics, you know, talk to physicists, various forms, whether it's traditional physics, you know, or quantum mechanics or whatever. They will tell you that, you know, based on Occam's razor and Pascal's wager and, you know, all kinds of other things, it's very unlikely that this multiverse thing, that you're going to be just popping from one universe to another to learn from your billionaire self or your Olympic gold medalist self. It's not going to happen. And there's lots of reasons in physics why we think that's unlikely. So, but does that mean that you throw string theory out completely when there's elegant mathematics that seem to demonstrate there's something there? And you can hit a cold spell where you don't really get any new ideas or any development with the theory, and then suddenly something happens. Higgs boson, or some technological breakthrough happens that allows us to see where we couldn't see before. So these articles, I want to show how you can compare and contrast across different kinds of fairly decent, rigorous content without having to learn how to read a science paper or be a scholar. You got to understand, you know, you may think all experts are shills. Well, a lot of them are in that business ecosystem of PR, publicity, advertising, propaganda, punditry, think tank, lobbyist type thing. But many people are just living their career, and they just happen to be an expert cabinet maker or an expert at jet engine maintenance or something. Think of all the different systems in a jet airplane. The electronics, the avionics, the engines, everything. And you need people who know what they're doing to build them, engineer them, design them, and maintain them. Otherwise, you're in big trouble, bro. So, we need experts, we need bureaucrats, we need politicians, we need defense people and police and emergency services folks. Takes all kinds of people to make the world go round. I'm going to do this. And you don't just throw it all out because you're more interested in your little sliver of the universe, your tiny little perspective that seems to say day in and day out just how profoundly more aware of things than everybody else, because they don't get your perspective. You know, these kind of ideologues can spend forever spouting their bits and pieces about their beliefs. Shit. I don't want to do that. It's gonna dead end for sure. I'm just not in the mood for a dead end right now. So, and still not have any impact. So there's something like 175 million adults from the age of 25 to 65 in the United States. And then I look at information content that I value. And that, the guy has 100,000 followers and 14,000 views on a video or whatever. You could look at articles, blog posts, whatever, papers, academic papers. It's like, what percentage of 175 million people is that? It's nothing. And then you look at the Taylor Swift thing, and it's just got nothing but attention and eyeballs 24/7. People invested in it. Across the world, people just don't want to engage with nuance and complex subjects. And they don't want to know. Any kind of difficulty depresses them. There's good stress and bad stress. We all know about that, right? I'm going to go here. Why not? And like riding this bicycle is good stress. It's not that much stress. I'm quite relaxed, but exercise of various forms, HIIT, or weight training, or playing on a team where you have to get along with other people, learning a foreign language, brushing up on your math skills when you're old. There's all kinds of stress, having a difficult conversation, solving problems at work, but they're good for you. And then there's bad stress. But we have to come out the other side and realize that making an effort to challenge ourselves intellectually, ideologically, whatever, is important, really, really important. Can't be ignored or discounted. It's extremely important. And we should spend a little bit more time each day on these things. We really should. And I want to encourage anybody who happens to view whatever I'm doing here to get that message. Because I'm not a scholar, I'm not an expert. I have skin in the game in certain areas, but I'm not, a huge advocate of any of these things. What I like is equal rights for women and human potential, and I just like civil rights, universal human rights, basic stuff that gets to that flourishing moral standards that all of us could kind of agree on. You can discuss, the pros and cons of monotheism and Descartesian dualism and whatever, all you want. It's all good. Figure it out. Discuss it. Dissect it. Interrogate it. But mostly interrogate your own thoughts. Wow, this is really nice here. Ooh, that's a beautiful view of the Mädel. I gotta stop and kind of move the camera over here. Off in the distance with these hills and this valley here. And the church steeple. What a nice day. It's nippy. It's nippy, man. If we don't pay attention and don't get busy pushing I think the quality of leadership, I've said this before, in Europe and the United States, in the rich West, is just horrific now. You look at the things people like Marjorie Taylor Greene say and so on. It's just, the eclipse is a message from God for us to repent and so on and so forth. The magical thinking that's coming back into the world is not helpful at all. And then this whole, I'm sorry to say it, but yes, industrial competition over industrial inputs, externalities of the global economy, competition over resources via war. It's not good. We need something else. We shouldn't tolerate it. And we shouldn't vote for or support candidates who aren't willing to really look at the intricate tapestry of causal relationships between various forces and elements and mechanisms and so on in our world, and seek to create partnerships. So one of the people on Nate's thing recently she wrote a book, her name escapes me at the moment, but she wrote a book called The Chalice and the Blade. I read that back in the 80s. But she talks about a partnership culture versus, this domination culture. And she's right. When the Chinese, leaders say they really think we should be focusing on collaboration, working together, finding ways we can accomplish things together, and so on. And the babies, the little diaper baby shit for brains, Western leaders just talk belligerently and call people names. They sound like little children in a playground, mimicking adults, the worst aspects of adults. It's disgusting. It's stupid. But yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that? And then here's another article exploring the Ukrainian war, the war in Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine. And why is it people are so stubbornly unwilling to understand the greater context of this whole thing? And you can even, the context even is beyond Russia and Ukraine. It has to do with Germany and oil and gas pipelines, resources, inputs for industry, and who controls it. So it's going to take America a long time to put the infrastructure together to supply Germany with enough gas to equal what it's losing from its Russian source. Woohoo! This is fucking awesome, man. Awesome. So, it just makes no sense. And during a period of time when we're supposed to be putting our heads together and working across the world, there are global projects worth doing. You can stay in your own little, Idaho ethno-state if you want. If that works out, you have your little charter state, charter city with your blockchain. But no amount of isolationism will protect us from the global forces that are global forces. They have nothing to do with human society, but have everything to do with human society because we impact everything more profoundly than any other species on the planet. So we do have the global issues we have to pay attention to, and sometimes these wars are transcend this event happened and therefore we have to do this. An isolated event, October 7, or the day they crossed the border during the special military operation and so on. Nothing else. Action, reaction, knee-jerk, shallow, stupid. I don't even know, McNamara would be fucking rolling in his grave. The old game theorist during the Vietnam War. These things just accomplish nothing. I want to emphasize that. What's the goal? The end goal? What are you trying to accomplish? If all the Western corporations go in and take over Russia, what are they thinking they're going to accomplish, really? If an American corporation buys TikTok, what does that accomplish? American regulations are different from Chinese regulations. Chinese regulate TikTok differently than America does. That's American law. Has nothing to do with who owns it, except we want our shareholders in charge of this fucking stupid little platform. I can't compete, so, sell it to me. So stupid. Is it going to change anything? Even if Ukraine loses territory and there's a peace deal and the borders are redrawn and treaties are made, what did it really accomplish? Are we going to transcend this stupid, shallow belligerency in order to actually accomplish something greater as a species on this planet that portends a sustainable future for human life, offspring, and for life on Earth, or not? So, how long did it take America to recoup its investment from the Vietnam War after Vietnam finally stabilized and its economy became strong enough to support offshoring manufacturing from the United States, from U.S. companies, Western conglomerates, and so on? And where do those profits go to? Well, you got your cheapshit.com, so the flyover people, the plebs and trolls, the poors can buy cheap shit at Walmart. So aren't you happy? And the shareholders obviously are happy because they don't have to pay workers a lot of money and benefits to make a high quality product. So once you decide you can't compete with China, so you have to destroy it, put it back to the Stone Age. They're going to need us after we beat them. China's not going to take the bait. It's not going to take the bait. Is Iran going to take the bait from Israel and start a lose-lose conflict that America gets involved with? Is Russia going to attack sovereign NATO territory, a country in NATO? I don't think they'll take the bait, but we'll posture like as tough guys until the bitter end, and we still have, nukes and whatnot. But I always wonder, so you tell me, right-winger, what's your agenda? How do you organize life? Is it Handmaid's Tale or what? 1950s wholesome, housewives, sister wives. What denomination is it? Is it the true Catholic Christian Church of Orthodox, or is it something else? Vatican 12.6. And how is that configured, and how do you get Indonesians and Malaysians and Nigerians and Niger and Mali and all these other people on board without just corrupting them while you pour money into a place in order to control the industrial resources, the inputs that you need to support some industries, but basically huge global corporations that have coded international law, coded capital. You really think Argentina is going to work out? I know some people are going to make a shitload of money on Argentina. Just like if you're the genius who's going to short sell at just the right moment. At the end of the day, what are we all going to spend our money on if everything's just wrecked? And be a techno-optimist, why wouldn't you be? Technology is pretty amazing, and we make all kinds of cool tech. But it's not going to save us from ourselves, not even close. It's not a panacea. It's not a silver bullet. So yeah, pharmaceutical companies finance research that's dangerous and stupid. And if we were more enlightened, we would have institutions that would be able to regulate those efforts. Precautionary principle in light of safety concerns, and on and on. Viruses evolve. You don't have to make them evolve and put them in humanized mice to see how they do. They'll evolve, and we'll get hit by a virus, and we have to figure it out. We have the technology. We can do it if we want to. But we don't have to invent a pathogen to get ahead of it. That's pretty dumb. So we need enlightened, rational actors who are logical, well-educated. That's a whole other question. What constitutes a good education? Who says? For whom? For what purpose? Hate the Catholic school because of the buggering priests. Hate the madras because they're all terrorists. Whatever. Don't be silly. If you're even a little bit numerate, you can look and see and say, this might be a problem. We can look at various lines of evidence and discover how it's a problem, why it's a problem, what it's about, and then do something to mitigate the risk, to increase the chances for success, and on and on and on. You can just jump into the universe where it all works out. And then you can bring back the information to this universe and you can fix it. Your little tiny piece of the puzzle. Well, let's all give it our best try, shall we? Thank you for listening. Buliam T out.